I didn't know that that should have those four.
Yeah, it's just pick up your password. Fly under the radar. But it's still, it's just like it's just make sure it just like your computer doesn't pick up your
Well, I need to email that out to you. So when I'm in public, I should open up the browser and then there's that talking button.
Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. For facilities, the Pennridge School Board welcomes public comment. According to policy 903, we remind everyone of the following. Public comment shall be limited to 3 minutes unless otherwise specified by the board. Participants must be recognized by a presiding officer and note their name and municipality. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer rather than to individual board members, district employees, or members of the public. A speaker may speak only once during each comment period. Please note that these sessions are designated for comments to protect the confidentiality and privacy rights of all members of our community. The board encourages members of the public to direct any comments regarding particular individuals such as students or district employees privately to the superintendent or other appropriate administrator, or to communicate with the board privately by sending an email to psdschoolboard@pennridge.org. Questions raised and not addressed may be followed up at a later time. Public comment. We have Sue Furlong.
Yep. Sue Furlong, West Rock Hill Township. I noticed on your facilities agenda, and I've seen this several times, many times, that we are recycling our textbooks. It's my understanding that we have 2 firms that come in and get to cherry pick which books they'd like to purchase. They buy those books, and then we're left with what they choose not to buy to go out to public auction. And so we're trying to auction off basically probably undesirable books if they were not originally taken by these 2 firms. I don't believe I recall where the state law allows you to just choose your vendors for excess school property. I would like to put in a request to know how this practice serves the Pennridge taxpayer in not asking these 2 companies to compete with other companies that purchase used textbooks. How did these 2 companies get their special standing with this school district that they get to just walk in, cherry pick which books they'd like to buy, take those? I don't know who sets the price and how the price is set in this scenario. So I'd like some answers to that, because as a taxpayer, I believe in competition and allowing maybe 4, 5, 6 companies to bid up those book prices. So if you could get back to me and explain, is this legal? Show me the state code where you can cherry pick your vendors. They don't have to bid for stuff. And how the other vendors who are not included, how are they legally excluded? Thank you. You can consider that a right to know request delivered in person.
All right, thank you. Are there any other public comments? Okay. First on the agenda is obsolete items for review. The first is from the Transportation Department, a mini school bus for scrap. The second one is from Bedminster Elementary, textbooks that are being recycled. And the third one is from North Middle School, textbooks that are being recycled. anyone have any questions or comments? Okay, then we'll move that one forward. The next item on the agenda is the broadcast journalism studio. Can I take that?
Okay, we're going to let Mr. Ferry start with the discussion on this proposal, and he has a number of folks with him here tonight, and I'll let him introduce them and kind of go through the project and the need, and then we can go over the documents that we have for costs and so forth. So, Joe, we'll let you run with it first.
Sure.
Okay?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I just want to give you a quick summary of how we got to where we are and why we got to where we are. This goes back to Dr. Kish's tenure as superintendent, when he asked me to work with Comcast to establish a public access channel for the district. And the number one task involved there was to get all 8 municipalities to give us permission to operate the channel on their behalf. As you might expect, that's a difficult proposition to get 8 municipalities to all agree to do one thing at the same time. We finally got that done. We had Comcast install all the equipment and quickly learned that our equipment in the studio was not nearly sufficient in order to produce content that would be worthy of going out onto a public access channel. So that began a process of trying to find out how we could upgrade our equipment. And so I have here tonight a couple of important people. Jeremy Friedman, who is the teacher of the broadcast journalism class. David Schlatter, who has produced a number of the videos that you have probably seen on Minithon and on the senior video that was produced and shown at graduation. And I also have Mike Cox from AVT, which is a company that specializes in equipping high school studios in particular. So I'd like to invite Jeremy and David to come up right now, and they're going to explain to you the state of the studio now and how it can be improved through this proposal. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Friedman. I'm an English teacher here at the high school. I teach the broadcast journalism class, where we pride ourselves in producing a show every morning shown in first period to every high school first period or homeroom every day. David is one of my students. I'll let him introduce himself.
I'm David Schlatter. I'm going into my senior year here, and last year was my first year in the broadcast class, and I really enjoyed it. I'd like to see the program improve. And yeah.
So the first thing we'll do is to show you a presentation. If you would like, please come join Sue in the audience, please. And we'll go through a bit of a presentation. So I'd like to thank you. Is this on? Yes. So first I want to thank everybody for taking the time to listen. Like I said, my name is Jeremy Friedman. I teach here at the high school. We run a program called the Daily Ramble. Our studio, fittingly, is called Studio P for Pennridge. And I'm going to give you an accurate depiction of what our studio looks like today and what it could look like in the future, and why we need these improvements. So David, will you hit that slide, please? All right, so this is Studio P. It is sad looking without the life of students running it and giving it life. This is really a blank slate. As you can imagine, you could probably set this room up in your basement. So I wanted to give you an accurate depiction of what the room looked like before we moved forward. David? This is our teleprompter and our camera. Now I have two slides here, two pictures. One on the right is Brooke Weeder, a student from 2011, a pioneer of the Daily Ramble when we started producing shows. And on the left is the same exact mic, camera, and processor to run the Daily Ramble, and it's 2017. So there's been no change there. The equipment has aged, however, it has not been able to grow. David? This is a lighting grid that is in the studio that unfortunately was installed incorrectly way, way back. It is a nice grid, however, it should be 6 feet higher than what it is. It creates an incredible amount of heat, so we don't use it in the studio. We choose to use the photo floodlights that are mobile. This is our booth. The cutest thing about this picture are my 2 kids posing in the studio. However, we run our booth on 2 PCs, which is not a real appropriate workflow or equipment to use to produce an actual cable-ready show. And again, I wanted to give you an accurate depiction of what that booth looks like. David? Now, like I said, we are the Daily Ramble. We do have a YouTube channel. If you search Pennridge High School Video, you can watch videos that have been warehoused there for the past 4 or 5 years. We do have 344 subscribers, and we keep growing. And we recently acquired that Comcast Access channel, which we are not ready for, unfortunately. The ask is we need better equipment to produce a cable-ready program and to catch up on the needs of our 21st century learners here at the high school, and to give them a 21st century process. We are currently using the same equipment from 6 years ago, and like I said previously, that the program is aged, but now we need to grow. David? What the new studio could offer. Bulleted first is more space, more guests. We would love to feature guests in the community, faculty. We would love to have administration come in, board members, cameo on the show. We'd like to do different formats. This is going to allow students, and that's the bottom line here, is the student experience, to have a cable-ready, real TV experience. And that's something that with the potential new studio, that space could offer that. It also could create a great branding opportunity and advertising opportunity for the district. We show how proud and principled and prepared we are, its students, its faculty, and the community. It will be a great vehicle for the community to stay informed. You click on our channel, you get a message. It could be a bulletin, an ad. It could be David. It could be me, or any one of you, potentially. And that, in that way, we could celebrate all of our accomplishments here. The technology is very important here. It wouldn't future-proof us, but it would create a more future-proof space, okay, than what we have now by leagues. Yeah. And it would give the students an accurate simulation of a real-life career possible career move. So the next slide is going to be maybe a little humorous for you, I'm hoping, David. This is what we have today. I took that from my iPhone. And this is what we could do. Okay? Now that is not a depiction of the live set that we will have, but is an idea. Okay? The vision is there, David. And this is our booth. Again, cuties in the background. But the one on the right is the potential. And there's a significant difference there. And the students could gain so much more from this new space just by the pictures. Okay. And David, I think there's one more maybe?
No, there's not.
Okay, that's the last slide. So David, if you would like to add anything, your experience.
One thing I do want to add is the social world is growing, and I think it's good for us to grow with it, so students can understand the way that the world is working, the world is changing, and right now we're providing an experience that would be something that you would see every day from 6 years ago, and upgrading the studio and building it to something that is more with what we would work with now. It would be more it would be very beneficial for the students, especially if they're looking to something in this career path. So that's one thing I want to add.
Many of you were at graduation and saw the feature, the senior video. We create that in the broadcast journalism class every year, and up until this year, we have actually used district equipment. This year, there was a significant quality difference from any other year. And the reason for that is we did not use the equipment provided in the studio. We used David's equipment. Now, David is an avid videographer. He keeps up with the times. He keeps up with the equipment and his product. And now, thankfully, our product looked pristine. Okay? So there's a true testimony that the equipment, the importance of that equipment. Now, there's nothing that can replace the importance of the student, but a well-equipped student can produce a product that looks like that. It's remarkable. So I really would like next to show you an episode of the Daily Ramble so you get an idea, and I'll tell you what goes in, and this won't take long, it'll be 4 minutes, and then I'll give you a little glimpse of what it takes to make that product. So you can full screen that, and you can just take us past the intro if you want. We can start right there.
December 20th, 2016, day 3 on your academic calendar.
From Dr. Radigan, our Takes Pride theme of the month is empathy. This week's quote is from Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa said, smile at each other. Smile at your wife, smile at your husband, smile at your children, smile at each other. It doesn't matter who it is, and that will help you grow up in greater love for each other. Mother Teresa established a new order of nuns who serve with empathy in 900 countries.
Wow. From the College and Career Center, gap year information. There will be...
So I just want to stop there briefly and ask how many of you could hear that clearly? Sort of. And there is a reason for that. The sort of is because the audio equipment in the studio is subpar. Okay? Good equipment produces good sound. Okay? Also, we see a pretty garbled looking pixelated image, a byproduct of old equipment. Okay, so newer equipment, better resolution cameras, better product, potentially cable record. Okay. And
One other thing that I want to point out is, I don't know if you could hear it, but there's a lot of other students talking right now in the background of that clip. And the new studio would provide a separation between the kids in the studio and the other kids that are working on features that are featured in the beginning of the video. And I find it distracting watching a video and hearing other students talking in the background. So a new studio would help prevent that and separate the other students working in the classroom and the kids in the actual studio itself.
thank you, David.
Be a gap year fair held on Saturday, January 7th in Philadelphia at William Penn Charter School from 1 to 4 p.m. For more information and pre-registration, please visit the hyperlink below.
Also, we have just been notified that Pennridge graduate Tyler Sandy has returned from his training with the Army. He will be visiting us on Wednesday, December 21st to share his experience with interested students. If you would like to hear a first-hand account of an Army training, please register on Naviance for this visit. If you have any questions, please see Mrs. Lewis in the College and Career Center, room 223. Thank you.
Furthermore, Women in Science and Engineering Forum. Female high school students interested in learning more about STEM careers, science, technology, engineering, and math, are invited to apply to attend this forum sponsored by the Da Vinci Science Center on Thursday, February 9th. Please stop by the College and Career Center for more information. Thank you.
From the Guidance Office, freshmen, are you interested in attending the VOTEC school as a sophomore? Then you're in luck. There will be a VOTEC tour on Friday, January 6th for any freshmen interested in attending the VOTEC school next year. You must have the permission forms signed by Friday, December 23rd to attend the tour. Permission forms are in the Guidance Office or in your social studies classes. Please see Mrs. Cuthbert or Mr. Behrens if you have any questions.
And all students 16 and older, on Thursday, January 26th at 7:30 a.m., the Guidance Department will offer the opportunity to take the ASVAB Career Exploration Inventory. ASVAB is the military entrance exam, but it's also an excellent tool for students with no interest in the military to identify strengths, interests, and vocational or career prospects. Sign up in the College and Career Center, room 352, by Friday, January 16th.
That's all from us. Now on to David with your sports.
We're going to show you, David.
Thank you, Nick and Megan. I'm David Schlauter, and I'm here.
Our star of the show, David Schlauter. A couple of things there. With the improvement with the equipment and the space, we will gain more frame space for the camera to invite more guests in. We'll also have the ability to key out, and what I mean by that is to actually have a higher def image than what we have here. Okay? To make David look like that in front of a green screen, the process there takes a long time. Okay? If there are waves in the green screen, it takes another tool to fix. Okay? And while those are good things to know, it is not the appropriate workflow for a studio set.
Especially because we're producing these shows every day, and it's hard to fit everything into one class period. We have one class period to film and edit the show, and right now, oftentimes, Mr. Friedman's left after the period finishing the show because we couldn't fit the whole class into the one period that we were set to have.
Students in the studios take several takes to get it right. Okay? We produce a show every day in 50 minutes. That's shoot it, edit it, export it. And that is an accomplishment. However, if we want to give the students a real life opportunity and experience a TV ready experience, then the process should change. All right, should we show you the Minithon video briefly? Have you seen it? Anybody else interested in seeing the Minithon video? Yes? A minute or two. That's what we got. And you'll just notice the quality immediately of the picture. David? Thank you for listening.
If I could just add, Mr. Friedman was talking about this different studio. The board members, I think I shared with you that we now have a location. We did a lot of research on this, and instead of Mr. Friedman's studio being on the 3rd floor, it will now be on the 1st floor with a classroom separate. So that's why he was talking about that he would have more room to have more people on the screen and be present, and then the students could be in a separate classroom and it wouldn't be disruptive. I want to give a big thanks to Mr. Friedman. Last year, I think I had shared with the board that Mr. Furry and I did a practice run of our Points of Pride show. And it was probably about 10 minutes. And Mr. Friedman took the time to edit it. It took him 80 hours to edit a 10-minute broadcast that Mr. Furry and I put together. And even with that, we were noticing that, when we would speak, Mr. Furry and I, our voices were not matching what you were hearing. And it goes back to the quality of the equipment. I also want to reiterate again, we were so thrilled that Mr. Furry was able to help us get those 8 municipalities all to agree to allow us to have the station. So here we are, we're ready to go, but we don't have the right equipment to make it happen. And Dr. Scheid wanted me to be sure I pointed out the fact that from a curriculum standpoint, we are doing our students a disservice, those who want to go into these type of careers, whether they want to be editors, they want to be the personalities on the screen. We can and we would love to give them the experience that they need to pursue their dreams. And right now we can't do that. Mr. Friedman does the best job he can. David is amazing. If you ever need anybody to videotape anything, boy, hire him out, because I certainly would. And he's a fine young man. I really appreciate all he does for our school and our district. So anyway, what they're saying is absolutely true. We've been very frustrated, and that's why we're coming to the board with this proposal of what we believe we need. So, Mr. Farrar, you want to add anything to that?
Just wanted to let you know that as you review the details of the proposal, Mr. Cox here is more than
I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have that will clarify the details. Thanks.
I have some questions. So first of all, I think it sounds great, and I've seen, I saw the whole mini-thon video. I thought that was great work, and by David and some of his other videos. So that's awesome. I have a few questions. So the number of computers is 18, and then there's one for the teacher. So I'm wondering, is that the cap for the class?
My understanding that, and I don't regulate the cap, and I have very little to do with the amount of students that enter the class. Guidance actually schedules, but I think that the amount of students in the class is driven by the amount of computers that are in the room. And I think that the space that was there was appropriate for 18 computer stations, which would allow 18 students into that course.
So my other question is, what's happening to the old room? Is that going to become a regular classroom? And then now with the double rooms, with the more space, is it possible to have more students? Because with new equipment, you might attract more students. And then I'm also thinking, I looked in the program of studies, and right now it's only 11th and 12th grade students.
That's correct.
And would it be able to be opened up to maybe 10th graders, and then it's a full year? Would kids have the flexibility to do it a half a year?
And those are all great questions. To just back up a little bit, the studio space and the classroom are shared by the film production curriculum as well. Mm-hmm. So while we do use that space, it is also used by film production students. Hannah Gottschall is in charge of the film production curriculum. So the computers and that studio would be then used for the film production students. The new studio will be solely for broadcast journalism.
Oh, okay, so the old room would stay for the
spaces
film.
would be, yep. Mm-hmm.
And they would keep the film.
And they would be able to utilize that room for green screen technology for filmmaking, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And so with the new room, so then the question is, would the new room be able to accommodate more students?
Yeah, so the new room and the studio space will accommodate for more students moving forward. Just the overall dimensions of the new creative room are larger, so they would have the ability to put more students into the class, sure.
Right.
Now,
So is 18 computers, does that cap the class, or can students be doing other things, or does everybody need to be on the computer at one time?
so a lot of these projects are done in groups. However, students are responsible for individual features. We produce a lot of public service announcements. We do a lot of Takes Pride theme features to run before shows. So we mix it up. We have lots of group projects. We also have individual projects where those students need to be on editing computers by themselves. Mm-hmm.
So are you saying that 18 if we have 18 computers, that would be the limit, or could there be more than 18 students in the class?
So the way, with the new room, it may be able to accommodate more students. I don't know that, but right now there are 8, I think 18 is the cap, and we're trying to reconfigure the room to accommodate for that many students, using different style desks, making it more consolidated for those computer users. The classroom that I'll be teaching in will also be used for my creative writers. So really the design of the room is pretty important to accommodate for only those 18 computers that are going to potentially be there next year.
So
But the room space is big enough to accommodate for more students.
more students, okay.
Mhm.
So it's possible, so you'd probably start with 18. Are there many, each year, are there many students that you turn away who don't?
So
get
there
into
are,
class?
I was there, and I was going to answer the next question, why only 11th and 12th? There are prerequisites to get into the course.
Okay.
Up until this point, 9th grade is sort of a jam-packed schedule for students where they don't have an opportunity to take some of the electives that are out there. Broadcast journalism 1 and 2 are elective classes. They are full-year classes. Students either need to take journalism or public speaking before they enter the broadcast program. And there have been students that have been absolutely turned away for not having those prereqs.
But not because there wasn't enough space?
No.
Oh, okay, all right.
Actually, excuse me, pardon me, last year, and David, I think we might have talked about this, there were an overload of students because students that did not take the prereq, something in the system didn't recognize that these students did not take it, so it allowed them to sign up for the course.
Oh, okay.
So we did have to take some students out because it did put the course over the cap.
Okay, and I just had one other thing. Do you see with the new equipment, I know some school districts, and I don't know, I assume it comes from a class, but they film, like at North Penn, they film all the sports events. They film a lot of events around the school, and then they publish them on a channel, which is a great service then to everybody, and it keeps people more informed of what's going on. So I'm wondering, do you see that in the
So
future?
we would love to do something like that, but I think, Mike, you can speak more to like the TriCaster and what the capabilities or whatever's in the bid can allow those things to happen. We very rarely turn down when people ask us to do things. We love to be involved. Ms. McHale just asked us to try to put something together for a job fair, and we've done lots of things for the administration and students and events to celebrate this district. We want to do more. With this package, we think we're going to be able to cover more features and allow the community to enjoy those features. I want a station that community members want to tune into. A lot of stations have bulletins that run in loops. I want a station that we have features to show and that actually community members want to listen to and tune into. And I think with this new program, this new studio, we're going to start to allow that to happen.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation. My questions revolve around additional costs related to renovations in the room. In the presentation, you spoke about the lighting being too low. Is there renovations that are going to be required to prepare this new space that we know of?
Yeah, hi. Mike Cox from Applied Video Technology. Yeah, so I was brought into the fold sometime over the winter, I guess January, February timeframe. And my initial meetings were with Joe and Diane was part of that. And we kind of were looking at the space initially to see if that was even going to work for it. We've done a lot of that kind of thing of what we're talking about here in terms of retrofitting a classroom. Now, one of the things the room on the first floor has going for it is you have, because of the previous purpose of that room, had the separated like observation room, which in our case now makes for a great control room area. It needs to be retrofitted a little bit. We need to put a countertop work surface in there for some gear. We need to put an equipment rack in there, that kind of stuff. In the studio space, the classroom as it now exists, a couple things that we need to do in there that we were talking about, like the chalkboard comes down to the whiteboard. We would hang a light grid similar to what Jeremy has in the existing studio. It'll be a little bit lower. Ideally, Jeremy, what he had mentioned about having the light grid up higher, that would be ideal. But most schools don't have that capability unless it is part of a building construction project to have that high ceiling. I live in Pottsgrove, and we did the Pottsgrove studio last year during their high school renovation, and I was able to catch it before that part of the building was built, so we actually got a 12-foot ceiling out of it. And as a taxpayer, I appreciated the fact that I caught that there. In this case, what we're going to do is we're going to have the same thing. So we're going to drop a ceiling grid in there in a classroom. It's going to be about 6 inches from the ceiling. We're also, one of the issues we have currently, and this is in a lot of schools, especially someplace that has lighting and stuff was put in 10 or 15 years ago. The heat generated in the studio as it currently is, those lights are 500 to 1,000 watts. They generate a ton of heat, which means you got to crank the AC and everything. Plus, if a bulb does pop, those bulbs can explode. You don't want that, especially in the school. What we're going with is all LED lights downstairs, and we do that way. Simple 1x1 panels, you're probably going to cut your power costs in a quarter to a third. I mean, your power costs will be a quarter to a third of what they are now to run that existing studio. The other thing, from a power standpoint, we'll use less power, even though there's not even that much there. Everything moving forward is solid state, LCDs, just less power draw and consumption on everything. So that's how we would equip that space. Working with the facilities folks, data, networking, the power. The ceiling would get a little bit of a retrofit in terms of the work lights. We'd still have some ceiling lights in there. And then we would put a light grid up, like I said, and we would also have a curtain going around half the room. So the curtain provides a backdrop, and then behind the curtain, the wall that currently has the backboard or blackboard down there, if you're familiar with the room at all, on the long wall where you first walk in, that wall would be finished drywalled, and it would be a green screen. So they would have multiple sets to work from. So the idea would be that they'd have a green wall, and they can pull the curtain back, and they could have a corner set, and they can have a curtain on the long wall over here on the exterior wall, heading to the outside there. Gives us flexibility for the room. Also, I planned a piece of set furniture, a desk, similar to what Jeremy had shown you, what it could be versus what it is now with the set desk. A little bit more contemporary looking, similar to what you see on the news and everything nowadays. We work with a company that does set design, and they do it on a budget to keep it in line with like what K through 12 or college, budgets are. So I'm getting the final design back from them, and as soon as they're real busy this time of year too, so I'm waiting for the final design back to them. I gave them some feedback, colors, logos, that kind of stuff, so I'm waiting to see what they come back with on that. Hope to have that within the week. And then I'll get that over to Joe, and so everybody can take a look at that and give some feedback on that. But the overall construction in the space, I don't want to say it would be minimal, but it's everything we've talked about is, Pennridge operations staff will be able to handle it in-house. We'll be responsible for the lighting grid and the lighting, and then the operations staff should be able to take care of everything else from a construction standpoint, even though it's not true construction, it's just some minor renovations we look at it as. So.
I'm looking over at you, Jeff. Jeff, for agreement. Yeah,
that's pretty much true. A lot of the furniture, like I said, the light rack, that's part of that quote and installed. I have a furniture quote here for the classroom. We have a fair amount of electrical work for my electrician. There's not a high cost in that. We do have to take down the whiteboard, which is full length, to get that wall spackle for the green paint. I think we want to darken the drop ceiling.
As one of the ideas, yeah. Just some black tiles.
So we have a couple days work down there, but it's nothing above.
Is that included in the cost that you're giving us, all those renovations?
The furniture and some of the electrical work is not my labor.
Not your labor.
Which we normally don't.
Okay. So it's just your labor, not their labor.
Their labor is included.
Yeah.
And the
Okay,
furniture
that's
is
what I just
included.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that all labor costs are included in this.
Yeah, everything is.
Other than Jeff's, yeah.
On the proposal that I had presented to Joe, we made some revisions as recently as last Thursday on that. One of the key things was we updated some of the equipment, and after we had kind of a committee meeting down there, about 2 weeks ago now, we made a couple of tweaks to it. We added some of the additional set pieces after we took some final measurements and that kind of stuff. My engineer was here with us last time. We reviewed all that with Jeff and everybody. So everybody's kind of on the same page now with everything. There's IT stuff, and Diane's crew is involved in that piece of it. So we've kind of planned that all out. One thing I try and do is get all the parties involved early on, and we started talking a couple months ago about this, because if I don't have IT, I don't have facility staff on board, you know, we get those 11th hour grumblings, you know, where something's got to get done and we didn't get it up front. But the one thing I will say for Joe and everybody else involved is everybody's been great to work with, and pulling everybody together for what it's going to take to pull that off has gone a lot smoother than it has in other districts. Because, like I said, we do a lot of high schools. We work with most of the ones in the area. North Penn, you mentioned, I know Bob Gilmer very well. North Penn's one of the few that do everything in-house on their own. They've built an unbelievable program over there, and they do a lot of their own in-house engineering and stuff. They just buy their stuff from us. So they do all their design. They have mobile systems, everything to be able to go out and shoot games and sporting events and things like that. You know, one of the things we were talking about as part of this whole project was, you know, we're taking a big jump here because of the channel being up and running now. And a lot of times it's the other way around, where schools go spend a lot of money, don't know what they need or what they really want to do, and then they have a channel, they need to go get a channel. In this case, we can kind of hit the ground running with the channel being up. You know, we're gonna walk you guys through the whole process here, from working with Jeremy, even on a curriculum basis, because we have some curriculum like Video 101 stuff that we can share with you guys in terms of, you know, how to, you know, best practices, things like that, you know, to training. You know, we're not going to install this thing and walk away from you. You know, we're here to back you up. I've included service for the next 2 years as part of this project for this. So if, you know, we get 6 months from now, these guys want to start doing something more advanced with virtual set environments and green screens and different graphics and things like that, our guys will come back out and do an advanced training session with them. You know, we can have the kids involved in that. We can video record it, you know, whatever we want to do to be able to handle all that stuff. So everything that you saw up there and the last couple of pieces I know that David had produced that were really great, especially considering some of the resources that were there. You know, one thing I was kind of surprised when I first saw the studio was that they were getting as good a content out as they were based upon what was there. So that's a huge credit to these guys, because I've seen people use really expensive equipment and produce garbage, and these guys have, you know, older equipment and are producing some pretty decent stuff. It's just they could do really good if they had some new toys, not toys, tools. But and everything that we've proposed for this, you know, we're not looking at the Mercedes here. We're looking at the mid-level is basically what we're doing here. You know, because it's a little bit of a smaller space, but we made it work, and the equipment that's on the proposal right now reflects that space. This isn't a cookie cutter thing that I just threw together. It's specifically designed for that space, given the control room space and the classroom space. And the idea is, with the classroom being adjacent to that room, that's a big deal for me, because frequently, you know, we look at a studio space and there's like, oh, we want to put a half a dozen editing computers in there, and where do we jam them at? You know, or shoved against a counter, there's no room for them, things like that. So taking that into account and having that is a big thing, having that room next door. That's an important piece of this whole thing, because you need a teaching space, not just a studio space. You know, I've seen it at both ends of the spectrum, where we have these gorgeous new studios in a new building, but they don't account for anything for the teaching space. So this is a really good balance of what we've been talking about here and what's proposed right now. So yeah, I hope that answers the question. I probably over-answered it.
Yeah, it did plus a little bit. I just got two more. One's for Diane, because I see in the quote here, network requirements are the responsibility of the building owner and or building contractor. Are we okay, or do we have additional things to do?
No, we're okay. So what we'll do is we'll set up its own VLAN. So it's actually going to be its own encapsulated network, so to speak. So it's not going to be, it shouldn't be bogging us down. They're coming in with their own racks. They're coming in with their own servers. So everything's going to be encapsulated in that room there.
Good,
So.
perfect. Okay, second question. You know, since I come on the board, I've talked to Dr. Radigan about televising the board meetings specifically. So we have a turnkey system, and Mr. Friedman, are we going to be able to televise board meetings on Comcast?
The technology will be there. The idea, one of the things I frequently will tell folks is, let's walk before we run, and it kind of goes not only for this type of environment, but if we're going to go out and shoot a football game, because Jeremy's going to be saddled with all of this. So one thing, and I've seen this in many schools, one thing as a board that you should be aware of is possibility of personnel resources growing to fit the need of the request moving forward. So the request to cover a board meeting, that might be these two guys. It might be another teacher and 2 students, something like that, to go out and shoot a football game, that kind of thing. So the technology will be there. It'll be capable of bringing a couple cameras in here and shooting a meeting and whatnot. We didn't do a full-blown mobile system in a rack that we wheel out to the football field. We did not put that in for this phase. If a year from now, let's say we want to do a small portable rack that we take out to go do a baseball game or a football game, that would be something next step, I would say. The idea here would be to create as much content in this building and see, staffing-wise or personnel-wise, let's say, from both a student and a staff standpoint, to go from there. So we will have the capability to do that. As part of this, we've got 3 studio cameras, but we also have, 8 field packages for students to run and gun with, basically, if they're going to go shoot something. So we'll have those to use. And like I said, if we wanted to add a portable switcher unit to bring in here to sit in the back room and connect 3 cameras to, we can do that. Another piece of it is, and I don't want to get into too much of the technology, but with what is currently spec'd, it is the latest and greatest as of like 2 weeks ago, with some of the new stuff that's been released recently this spring. Some of the video feeds can be sent over a network. Now, that's stuff that we have to work with Diane's staff on. Like, we could send feeds from this auditorium or the gym or a library, or the principal wants to do a broadcast from the office or something like that. We would have the ability to put that over the network and stream it. And in the building, once we produce the morning announcements, that's going to not go over the cable system to TVs or projectors in the classroom. It's going to go over the network to the laptops, computers, portable devices, and all that moving forward. So the technology will be there to be able to do it. We just have to roll it out a little bit at a time, I think. We don't want to do it all at once, so. But, all right.
Thank you.
Yep.
If we approve this in July, how long would it take to get this up and running? That's a good question. Mr. Lawford, do you want to hit that? Because we are time sensitive, although Mr. Friedman is willing to be flexible as he has been up to this point.
Well, once we get the approval, I have my guys ready to go down there and start working. Probably about a week's worth of work on our hand. We're going to pull a lot of DNA things for the back end and that sort of thing. Now, furniture order could take 6 to 8 weeks. So we need the approval from the board and get a PO into the business office. I don't have control of the furniture, but the classroom itself can be ready construction-wise in a week or so.
So are we looking to start this in September? We are, Mr. Friedman said if it's all not ready, he'll just ad lib, because there's certain things you do anyway, if I'm not mistaken, Jeremy, that you don't necessarily need to be, doing certain things immediately.
That's correct.
I have another question when you're done then too.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. In the beginning of the year, we don't start up our program until about October.
Okay.
We're learning the programs for all the new students. We're also communicating and team building in the first couple of weeks of school. Like as David said, it's a lot of communication and group projects, so we sort of try to build that social emotional learning in the classroom as well. So we won't produce footage until probably October.
While you're up there, I have not seen this space, so help me understand this. Is the classroom adjacent to the, no?
Yes.
I see a smile.
So, yes, thank you for asking.
I don't know it's upstairs.
Yeah, the studio space is on the first floor. The studio space is separated from the classroom by a stairwell. So it's a completely separate space. However, close in proximity.
They're close. I'm sorry, so.
Yes, so the room numbers are 120 and 122.
Okay, and the stairwell is 121.
And the stairwell, that's the hidden classroom.
One last question. So the classroom part of this, that's not run this at the same time, so you're in the classroom, you develop something and then move over to the studio, it's not run simultaneously?
You bet it is.
I bet it
Students
is.
in the classroom for the creative suite are creating features, PSAs, advertising for clubs, teacher features, showing and celebrating other students, other events such as mini-thon, prom, and you can imagine there are many, many more. That classroom is meant for students to be creative in creating those features.
Okay,
The studio space is meant
it's for recording.
for recording the actual show that many of the special features accompany. Okay, so we will attach a special feature in the front of each show, and then it will be one hour show.
Okay, so I guess, I mean, I'm probably not in high school, but you need supervision in both places at the same time.
Yeah, so as a matter of fact, a lot of the time students are out in the field, and it takes an incredible amount of trust. I tell my students every day that I expect them to act as they would in my presence, and that their activity outside of the classroom is a direct reflection on my instruction. So there's a zero tolerance for any misbehavior or misuse of time or equipment. And the new students know these expectations.
So the zero tolerance, then what is the consequence?
Yeah, so a lot of times, my policy is if they are not on task where they should be, then they do not air. They will not be a part of the show.
But they remain in the program?
They do remain in the program, yeah, because their drive is there, their interest is there. Some students may be misdirected, then I'm able to reel them in and redirect them. That's a part of teaching. Sure. I have to let them create. And unfortunately, I'm one, and they are sometimes 18. And they really embrace the independence. For the most part, they do not take advantage of that sort of freedom. They are thankful for it. And I have letters from students every year as a testimony of how thankful they are that they have that sort of creative carte blanche, that they know it's a privilege.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So what you're saying is they could be in both of those locations at the same time and you'll be in one. So that classroom could have unsupervised kids in it as well as out in the field?
Well, the editing suite, I am back and forth in between both classrooms, the studio. Right now it is adjacent, separated by a curtain. So, if I am able to monitor both rooms at the same time. Are there times that the students in the studio are alone, producing a student-produced show? Absolutely. Yeah, they're producing a student-driven show for students.
Now, neither one of your new locations is from your old location, correct?
It's a completely new location.
Both are. Okay, that's what I thought. So, when you said you were sharing your old location with someone else. How are you sharing that location? Like, what did you do if you had classes at the same time?
The classes are scheduled at different times.
So wouldn't they still be scheduled at different times?
They would be.
So then potentially you don't really need the old classroom because she could still use the new one, right? The other teacher?
The classroom right now is set up for 2 teachers sharing a classroom, 2 different curriculums. Mine is broadcast, Hannah's is film production. We share the same computers, okay? And this space would allow her to have that space for her students solely, okay? And allow broadcast students to have a separate space as well. Now those classes are taught in the same day, just different periods, but that room is used by both curriculums.
Okay, but potentially you could move her into that room and you could still, the new location, and you could still share that location.
Well, that is a possibility. And I don't know, I guess I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know how many students are signed up in film. I don't know how the schedule this year works, and I don't know, what that would look like for Hannah's classes.
Okay, and the 2 new locations, what is in there currently?
Currently, they're set up as classrooms.
So what's happening to those classrooms?
The 2 new classrooms, the one classroom is being outfitted potentially for the studio.
No, I mean, I'm sorry, what's happening to the classes that used to be in those 2 classrooms?
I'm assuming they'll stay there for the film production.
I think what you're talking about is the teachers that were in there.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so
They're moved to another
they are
location.
being moved to another location. Good.
So they're being integrated into other classrooms now?
They're moving to another location altogether.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood the question.
I can think of one, Mr. Dios's classroom is now being used as your classroom.
That's
It's being
correct.
relocated, I think, to the 3rd floor.
That is correct.
And so did we have an extra location? I guess I'm wondering how we're fitting people
We
in
must have
other
had an
spots.
extra, I do know we had some extra classrooms, because even when I go around visiting the building, I see some, well, of course, it depends on the period too, but yes, we had some extras. He was able to move to another room.
Okay, and we saw the difference between those two productions, and I'm wondering, how does AVT compare to David's production that he did for us?
Yeah, so David did a hell of a job what he did. So so basically, I mean, Dave's using HD equipment right now. In the studio as it is right now, there's not HD equipment.
I mean between his personal equipment and the equipment we're supposed to be buying from you.
Yeah, so Dave, I mean, the equipment that Dave's using is what I would call like prosumer, kind of middle of the road type stuff. What we're looking at is now professional gear. So like, I'll give you just kind of the 50-cent overview of us. So I work with everybody from an elementary school teacher with a video camera and a switcher for morning announcements, all the way up to QVC, Comcast Sportsnet, Channel 6, all those guys. So I kind of run the gamut. A lot of our customers are K through 12 in college. It's kind of our specialty for doing this type of stuff. So what David's got, we're giving him a better tool set, let's say, to produce content with. One of the things that right now is pretty much everything is done in what we call post-production. So if they shoot something, they have to put it in the computer, edit it, create it, and pump it back out. The tool sets that we're giving them now, basically they can create stuff live without the need to post-produce everything. So as soon as that shoot is done, it's ready for publishing. It can go right out to the web. It can go right out into the school. Morning announcements are going to be produced live. The post-production aspect will be for shows that they want to produce outside of the morning announcements, really. So if they've got a dozen or 18 or whatever computers in that room, it frees those computers up for more use outside of just morning announcements. Because right now, most of their work is tied up by doing morning announcements by themselves. And then outside of that, they can do all the other stuff, the PSAs, the commercial logs, and bumper breaks and things like that, the little snippets that go on the front and the end of the shows that they do. So the production aspect, the live production aspect, we'll have the capability to do live graphics right in live real time. Right now, they don't really have that capability. They have to take it in and do it later on and then publish it out. So the capability to do that, the ability to do the live stream, we'll have that capability. The cameras are going to be more our broadcast standard, let's say. I work a lot with RCN in Lehigh Valley, and the cameras we built a $500,000 TV truck for them. And I took that same camera and I scaled it down for high school use. So we have a nice looking camera, but it doesn't have all the bells and whistles that the RCNs of the world need to do their video production for a baseball game, let's say. So I kind of scaled that stuff down to bring it more to a high school level. Picture quality, sound quality, one of the things, the audio was, I know Jeremy pointed it out, that's one of the things that's going to be hugely improved because there's really no audio tools in the studio as it is right now. It's one microphone sitting not much different than this, and the kids sit 15 feet back from it, and you can't hear, and that's why the audio isn't that good on the videos. So we're looking at better video, better audio. Like Jeremy said, the setup time to do a green screen is time consuming. And they're probably staying after school or doing it in advance so they can have the morning announcements ready to go the next day. What we're gonna do here is, they can roll in 10, 15 minutes before the shows start and they're ready to roll. Flip everything on, it's up and running and they're ready to go. You can do a whole show, no problem. So the setup time will be lessened. The teleprompter, I don't know if you noticed at all, like when they're doing the teleprompter, it's just a monitor sitting on a cart, We are actually gonna have real teleprompters mounted on a tripod with a camera, and they're looking right into the camera, so it'll look like you're watching Jim Gardner on Action News, essentially. So we're not, and like I said, we're not talking about like the Mercedes of broadcast gear here. We're talking